Hello, and welcome to Dialecticast, where we aim to break things down through open dialectic conversation and probably many tangents along the way.
I'm Adnam.
I'm Kevley.
And I think, given this is our first one, the better aim is to talk about what brought us to this point and who we actually are. So, who wants to go first?
Well, this is definitely, I'd call it your baby, so you start.
Fair enough. Well, I've always had a bit of an interest in politics, philosophy, and such forth. I've worked in the hospitality sector pretty much my entire life, which has gratefully collapsed under the magnificent Boris at the moment. Beyond that, didn't particularly get involved in politics until a few years ago, where I joined up with UKIP, based on the free speech angle that they adopted and pushed for. Since then, left them after the party collapsed. Currently partyless. Currently stuck on trying to find a political home and trying to actually engage in good faith, which I think a lot of people on both sides of the argument, a lot of people aren't willing to do with ideas as a whole at the moment. They're more interested in ideas that back up their mindset rather than something support an actual discussion. So, yeah, that's my short background as such.
Well, mine's, depending on your perspective, mine's not interesting and interesting at the same time.
Yours feels a little bit more interesting than mine.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd say the brief overview is I'm from South Africa originally, and I moved here back in 2007. And so I've had the interesting experience of, I'd say, becoming British. I also was not really super interested in politics. I think back in 2011, 2012, I got very interested in copyright and privacy laws. Didn't like the government getting involved in stuff, which kicked off my libertarian ideology that I have now. And so, yeah, I didn't really get properly involved in politics. I used to read a lot of articles, and then I was kind of on and off with it until about 2014, where I just completely left politics. I got a new job, and I was just completely invested in that. And so I work in web development. I've moved from the full-time to contracting, which is a very hectic workspace, but gets me in a lot of environments. So I've seen so many different viewpoints from different people, and it's given me an interesting view on how different areas of the country think. But around about 2017 to now, I got back into politics, and heavier than ever before. Like Adnam, I also joined UKIP, and that was a interesting reason. A similar reason, actually, free speech, but mainly just freedom and a libertarian stance. Out of all the parties, UKIP seemed like the one that wanted to give more power to the people, which I liked. And I'm actually still a member because I haven't bothered to... Actually, wait, hold on. No, it's the 8th of November. I'm no longer a member. Never mind, I didn't renew. I'm kind of in a similar situation right now. Like, I do like looking at the sort of... I started thinking a bit more deeply about politics, like less what's going on and what causes the things that are going on. And I'm having to start to explore the background. But one thing that fascinates me is just, like I said, the reason I joined UKIP is gives more power to the people. And in the same sense, I'm very interested in the people and what causes their actions and everything that's going on. But, that's why I can also be quite boring.
I think analytical is probably a better term than boring.
True, actually. I got criticised once for being too analytical by a friend of mine. Got really annoyed.
But it's perhaps a bit better to be analytical than, I'll say reactionary. The term gets used, I think, out of context, or incorrectly a lot. But to be fervently responsive, perhaps analytical is better at times.
No, I do agree, and I've always considered myself analytical since even back in 2012, I noticed that I'd look at something and try and break it down, figure out what. I mean, hell, I've always done that with technology as well, breaking stuff down, trying to figure out how it works and what are the base elements, and doing the same thing with politics has been mind expanding kind of experience because I'm looking at things that are going on and I'm seeing echoes that go centuries, even a millennia back, of events that create the world we live in now, and it's kind of gives me pause for thought, really.
I think that's definitely to your benefit though, because it's one thing I've definitely noticed is not only do you obviously engage in things in good faith, but you break down the point behind an argument, rather than just taking anything as a base assumption, which I think is definitely needed in the modern day as such.
I do try, and I think that's why I've liked the stuff that you talk about, because in the same sense, you're willing to kind of question things that are seen as axiomatic, things that people just don't question. They just think, that's the time when we were talking about slavery. That one was a prime example.
I think context-wise, we should point out this one, which
yes,
I still stand by this point, as bad as it is. I put a thing on Facebook at one point where I said I believe slavery can be morally justifiable. I'm not saying it should be, and I'm not saying it is. I'm wondering very specifically here, but I'm saying it can be morally justifiable.
You know that if we get famous, that's going to get clipped.
Oh yeah, definitely. Someone's going to try and clip that any day. But in fairness, if we get to the point where someone's clipping us, they're going to be trying to find my Facebook posts in the past anyway. So.
Well, you know that once you get to that point, that's going to be your I wouldn't even rape her line.
Yeah, it's a good start strong with slavery is morally justifiable.
Yes, but honestly, having that whole engagement where I remember seeing that post and I thought to myself, obviously just reading it off the fact, at face value, it's that people are gonna think that's a moral statement or something. But obviously, if people were able to morally justify it historically, then there must be some way that they morally justified it. And obviously, we've already got this is I think what I said when I was responding to that is that we do have systems of slavery right now. I'm not on about the Middle Eastern slave trade. The prison system. Restricts people's freedom, forces them to live under certain circumstances, and requires them to work.
It's indentured labor.
I mean, and as we saw with Kamala Harris, how she didn't want to free a bunch of slaves prisoners, because they needed the fire department work that they were doing, the prisoners were doing.
Yeah.
And it's what?
Next president, definitely, yeah.
But, I think...
Never speak ill of a future president.
I will speak ill of any current leader, whether they be North Korean or American or British. Honestly, I think that... but like you say, taking these questions that are seen as just unquestionable, you can't possibly think about them.
I think it's important to question those sort of things, otherwise...
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's very, I think, arrogant to turn around and say that we are at a moral peak in history. That we can, our judgment of anything that's happened in the past is inherently better than what it was. This is actually one of my big issues with progressive, and even the term progressivism, because it implies that things are continually improving. Whereas history has shown that things are not always an improvement. Things change, but not necessarily get better.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think we were looking at this a while back about how the term for the fallacy of comparing the past with today's morals is chronological snobbery. And I love that term. It makes it such a mark on the person who's then engaging in that argument. But yeah, you are right, because obviously it is sort of this view where people don't realize why is slavery bad. You know, people can't answer that question. They can't figure out why people can justify it, why it shouldn't be justified, why it should be discarded. If you can't answer that question, then you're going to repeat history. You're going to create the same problems of the past.
Sometimes it is important to break things down to their base elements and then understand the implications from that, rather than just saying slavery bad, child abuse bad. So, okay, why is it bad?
Yeah.
Why is it that child murder is seen as worse than a regular murder?
Yeah, and it's the same as understanding the reason age of consent laws exist. Like, there's a whole reason for that. And because people don't understand that, we've now seen, like, there's laws changing in the world. You got now people talking about the maps, you know,
Oh, God.
And if that's what happens when people are not fully understanding. I mean, I do understand that there are like, you need to have like Jordan Peterson talks about the low resolution view. You know, where you don't have a full understanding, you've got a basic moral system. And English culture has generated that. But now, as certain things are dissolving that, people start to question all sorts of things, and they don't have a full understanding. The common person doesn't have an argument against gender identity and gender fluidity. They don't have an argument against that because they don't understand why we have the strict two-gender system, why that exists. It's because there's a strong history behind that.
Yeah.
Centuries
right,
ago.
It what people, I think, take in one way, it's not only forgetting the history behind it. And don't get me wrong, the thing is that history doesn't mean it's right and is the only solution. Definitely it should be able to be questioned and discussed, and alternatives should be able to be discussed. At the same point, there's a reason that conclusion has been come to. And as you say, it's important to understand why that conclusion had been come to in the past.
Yeah, and I think that understanding that, it kind of leads you then generate a high resolution understanding of it, and then you can revert back to a low resolution one, but have the possibility of coming back to a high resolution. And I think that's why people like Jordan Peterson have been brilliant for the world right now, because he has a high resolution understanding, and he can serve it in a low resolution way. You can say something, and you're like, I always knew that was true. And he's just put it in the perfect way, because because he's got the high resolution understanding, he can just come up with a phrase that we all understand to be true and we could just never put into words. To make a really bad comparison, that's kind of what Jesus did. Because Jesus...
Yeah, it's not incorrect.
Yeah, because Jesus, when all the parables that Jesus put forward, even the people who absolutely hated it knew that he was speaking the truth. When he would tell them a story of the Good Samaritan, and he would talk about a man who, helps someone on the side of the road, and even though they don't want to admit that Jesus was right, they knew that he was speaking the truth, and because he was able to put it in a way that anyone can just understand.
I mean, given we're moving on to religion, it's always a colourful, sensitive subject. I should point out I class myself as atheistic, with a bit of leaning in terms of Taoist and Buddhist side of things, in terms of how in my philosophies, rather than any orthodoxy, such as much an orthodoxy can exist in Buddhism. But I'm definitely atheistic in that respect.
I mean, I play my cards close to my chest, but I'm a Protestant Christian. I don't really practice, so I'm not a very good one. But I do have my own beliefs. I tend to keep them to myself for the most part, unless I'm asked. Because
personally, I'd say I've had actually it's interesting to me at least, my journey with religion. Because if I'd said this, been asked as such, what my religious beliefs were 3-4 years ago, I would have said I was distinctly anti-theist.
Yeah, that's a lot of people were.
And now I'm definitely recognising the value and importance of religion, even if I still disagree with the idea of orthodoxy.
Yeah.
That one, as someone who is distinctly classically liberal, to use the cliche term, or in places directly anti-state, to then support a religious orthodoxy seems a bit of a contradiction to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I say, most religions can fall into the same problem as many atheist views can. Is when they become autocratic, you end up with what C.S. Lewis called the moral busybodies. You end up with people who have, because their religion condones gives them license to act in a certain way because of their conscience. The same thing happens, and as we're learning now through the 20th century and even now today, is that even atheists can fall into this moral busybody stance.
I think one of the benefits of religion, though, is that it provides a framework through which to have a low-resolution look at the world.
Yeah, and more importantly, sorry, go on.
Without having to sort of overthink it, it cuts a lot of the tail ends off as such. So it's saying, okay, this, so you don't have to think about the bit behind it. The same point, I think it's also important to question.
Yeah, I mean, the Ten Commandments, for example, that they are very basic, and they have formed the basis of most of our society today.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, like I said, the reason, by the way, I don't talk about my religious views much, unless I'm asked, is because I always see it as... just to quickly summarize, basically, it talks about, spreading God's kingdom, right, in the Bible. That's what Christians are supposed to do. And the way I see it, if I talk to people in Britain, they have already heard about the Bible, they've already heard about God's word.
Yeah.
So they've either accepted or rejected it already. It's like they're not ignorant to it. I mean, some people do have a very ignorant understanding of it. But,
definitely. I've actually found that it's often... actually people who claim to be quite heavily religious have a more ignorant understanding of the Bible.
That's very true. Although I did run into a college friend once who confused Abraham and Noah, which is very, very interesting. But yeah, so I tend to keep it to myself because the way I see it is someone asks the question, they've invited it. And also, one thing I've loved, and Jordan Peterson has highlighted this for me, is the way that there's a lot of verses and things in the Bible that you can look at them from two points of views. So you can look at them from a religious point of view and say, okay, well, God knew everything about the world, so he told him to do this because he knew better. Or you can look at it from the Bible was formed through lots of traditions and people passing down stories, which became myths and legends and such. And these are also based on truth that was just a tradition practiced over time. For example, there's a verse about not eating birds of prey, and the fact that they don't eat pigs. Now, I was specifically with birds of prey. Obviously, they've got bacteria, and the meat they eat and all that in their stomachs, it's all raw meat, and there's a lot of bacteria in their talons and they form a lot of bacteria, and so without the proper hygienic methods, if you were to eat a bird of prey, you'd probably get sick. And whether you look at it from a religious, spiritual point of view, or just a traditional point of view, both of those were things that were just
good advice at the time.
Yeah, it's a basic rule that was understood. And so I love the fact that there's a lot of these traditions that have been passed on. I love the fact that the reason that a lot of this is going to be a weird one, a lot of Jewish people are mistrusted has been happened for centuries. To even the point during there was the Black Plague. There was people, I think it was in Hungary, and a few other places, they just didn't trust the Jews. Yeah. And the reason they didn't trust them is because the Jewish people weren't getting sick. At least they would at much lower rates than everyone else. And so they thought they were practicing some sort of dark magic. Turns out the Jewish people had a tradition passed down of washing their hands. And
which definitely helped.
Yeah. Something so simple.
Living in the midst of a global pandemic, that definitely
helped. But it's they didn't, so even the Jewish people didn't really understand germ theory.
Yeah.
But there's these things that just get passed down. I've gone on a bit of a tangent there. So just
no, that's I think definitely. Well, it's an interesting tangent as well, though. The point still stands there in the same way that without understanding orbital mechanics, we can still understand how days work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How months exist down to a base attempt at a lunar calendar that's then been adjusted slightly here and there over the years to get what we currently have.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I'd say in terms of the Judeo-Christian religions, one of the things I do like is the fact that despite all of their persecutions, they did foster a civilization which created growth. Like technological and scientific growth. Even though obviously, there wasn't a lot of there was a lot of executions and tortures. Usually of people who probably had a low resolution understanding and didn't want it to be questioned.
As just a side note, this just pops up. Do you know why we have 7 days in a week?
I don't. I'm curious.
There are 7 objects moving in the sky that are trackable with the naked eye. The Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn.
Ah, okay. That's interesting. That also explains the naming for some of them.
Oh, yes, definitely. Sunday, literally the day of the sun. Thursday comes after Thor. Actually, most of the modern names come from Norse, actually. Wednesday comes from Odin's Day or Woden's Day.
Ah, yes. I know that one. Unfortunately, I know it from a TV show.
Tuesday being after the Norse god Tyr. Friday comes after Frigga.
Yeah.
Monday, I can't remember. I think it comes after morning. Or something along the lines of the morning day. Saturday, yeah.
It's a bit like, what was it? Isn't it goodbye comes from God be with you?
Yes, God be with you.
Love that.
And also, because English has had the great vowel shifts in Shakespeare's time, a lot of these things would have been closer to God be with you, which can easily become goodbye.
Yeah.
Than just God by. God be.
There's actually a guy, you've probably watched him. There's a guy on YouTube who does Old English translations, and Middle English translations. And his videos have been very enlightening for me.
There's actually a guy on YouTube who did a couple of interviews entirely in Old English. Not just Old English.
I think we're talking about the same guy.
I'll go. It's up now. He effectively got someone to interview him as if he was an out-of-time Anglo-Saxon.
Is this a guy who couldn't identify bark properly?
Yes.
Weird way to reference it, but yeah.
Oh, I gotta find this now.
Yeah, so I do like his stuff, and if you watch his videos, I'll send you some links later. But we'll put links in the description because
we have to remember we're being professional about this.
Yes, no, there's some very very good stuff actually. It's always good to know where your language comes from. It can be a fascinating thing to find out.
The closest language to English is Frisian, which very closely related to Dutch. It's, I say, a variant of Dutch. It's born out the same sort of language, to the point that a lot of English-speaking people that, without knowing any Dutch or Frisian, can kind of understand a lot of it.
Yeah, well, same goes for the Old English as well. Like, if you listen to it, especially once you see the fact that GHs were pronounced as like a hard sound.
Yeah.
So night was pronounced as nicht, things like that. Which is why I found it really interesting that Nightingale was originally Nightingale.
Yeah.
Things like that, like just seeing how things form over time, and we're seeing it even today. The internet.
Even the name of Wales.
Yeah.
Wales itself, the name would have been Wales.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that comes through the French, which would come through Latin first, but the French that came to Britain was not what we would class as French today. It was Norman French, and there was a big dialectical difference between Norman French and Parisian French, which took over as modern French.
That actually leads me to a bit of a quick tangent.
In modern French, where it's pronounced as a G, in Norman French, it would be pronounced as a W. Yeah. So Wales becomes the Gales.
Ah, okay. Gauls.
Which, Gaul, yeah. Wales is literally Gaul.
That's actually really cool, yeah.
Same with Cornwall as well, actually. The Cornwall. The Kern comes from, because in Cornish it's Kern now. They ditch the Wale bit. Kern now literally means a promontory or headland. So it's the people of the headland. It's the Gaul of the point.
Speaking of that, there's another one that I learned a while back. I tried learning Russian a while back, and I've tried it on and off over the past few years. There's one translation that I always find interesting, because when I was learning Russian, and I had to say Japan, it was Niponya, or Niponya. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but that's more or less what it's like. And so I was like, well, that's nothing like Japan. And so I looked into it, and it turns out that due to the people, I think it was to do with Portuguese travelers who either went to Japan, I forget the exact, but basically the route that they took, what the Japanese call Nippon, slowly got morphed and molded into a harder J. So it became Japan, and eventually Japan.
Yeah.
And so the reason in the English-speaking world that we say Japan is just because of the route that it took. But the countries that would have had a direct access, so like China and Russia, that would have probably got direct contact with them, they actually say the Nipponia or Nippon.
One of the things people don't realise, it's very rare to see linguistic drift happening in action, obviously, because it takes quite a while. But there are cases where we can see it. There's a thing happening in America at the moment known as the Cot-Court merger.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's a lot of places in America that will pronounce cot as in a child's bed and court as in I caught a ball exactly the same. And some people don't, like, there are generally people in certain places in America that don't realise that some people pronounce those differently, or don't even realise that they're pronouncing them the same.
There's a brilliant one. Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
I caught a ball in the cot.
There's one for Baltimore.
Yeah.
Where there's a phrase, Aaron earned an iron urn. And the Baltimore accent, that's pronounced earn, earned, and earn. And there's a video of a Baltimore guy saying the phrase out and having a moment of reflection, saying, do we actually sound like that? And then his friends are berating him because he's like, he enunciates. He goes, Aaron earned an iron urn. And his friends are just like, no, it's just earn, 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 earn. And his friend is like, calls him an idiot for saying it properly, like saying it in an enunciate way. And it's really funny to just see this moment of like, suddenly seeing it from a different perspective, the way other people see it. I think
grammar is pronunciation and grammar are definitely weird. It's like the grammatically correct sentence of buffalo.
Yeah, I was talking to my wife about that just earlier this week. That's always I love that sentence. It makes it so difficult to break down though.
Another one is James Earl John had a better effect on the teacher.
I don't try and keep track of that one as either. There's a Chinese one as well. I forget how many there. She, I think.
I've never engaged too much in Chinese or a lot of Eastern languages because they're tonal languages, and so you can have effectively the same word in a different tone be a different meaning. That's why it's also very easy to misspeak in Chinese. We don't have that really too much in Western languages.
Yeah.
I have never been one for tone to be able to do tone well in a language. It's very difficult to be sarcastic in Chinese.
But pronunciations are often difficult. I was just to go back a bit quickly. I was gonna say when we were talking about language change over time.
Yeah.
The way that the internet and memes have changed language is fascinating to me.
Oh yeah.
It's like a huge acceleration where instead of something taking years, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even a decade to become like common, like words can become common in like 2 months.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Like spicy. and salty,
Yeah.
which I'd never heard of, and now suddenly they're like everywhere. Everyone says them all the time.
And you don't need to look up a description as such. It's allowed effectively a lingua franca to form. There is a Creole patois as such that has evolved for internet speech. Emojis are actually one of them. I think emojis are effectively the first universal written language. I actually wrote a piece about this for a news site that a friend of mine ran a while back. But it was sort of I compare the origins of emojis coming through Chinese and Japanese symbols.
Yeah.
And the basis of how the Chinese Empire worked is Chinese is actually about 3,000 different languages using the same symbols. And the Chinese Empire worked on that grounds of, say you wanted to order tea or something from somewhere 500 miles away, you would write it down and they'd be able to understand it written down over there. Whereas the British Empire took, let's speak very loudly until they speak our language. But in logographic sort of languages where symbols represent a word, what we have now with emojis, you can fairly understand a lot of things without having to understand what someone's actually saying. You can put forth a lot of complex ideas through 3 symbols.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like, the only thing I could compare to that's recent is not really language change, but GIFs. GIF responses, GIF reactions, and so.
Yeah.
Where it's just like it can be a reference to a meme. It could be. This is why I say memes to me are fascinating as well. Like I saw a meme, which referenced the meme itself referenced about 3 other memes that were about 10, 20 years old.
Yeah.
And so you had to know the meme and the 3 references to understand the joke, which required like 20 years of knowledge. And just this one picture covered all that. And I was just like, it's like an inside joke in an inside joke, which is then that's another meme, isn't it? That I heard you like.
Yeah. It's definitely quite interesting to see how fast all this develops and how also see what's been left by the wayside as such. Because there are a lot of memes that were quite big at the time that have fallen by the wayside.
Oh yeah, Rage Comics, for example.
Yeah, they died. I was going to say Millhouse is not
yeah.
That's an old reference to some extent.
And the funny thing is, memes follow the same sort of thing as language in the sense of the way they evolve. You ever hear about... by the way, I love the fact that we've moved from religion to this. But,
it's all interconnected, man.
Everything is interconnected.
I feel like that required an Alex Jones impression. It's all interconnected, man. It's all interconnected.
Yeah, so basically, there's a Rickroll?
Yeah.
Do you know how that formed?
No.
So, Rickroll started when, basically... Oh, it's a bit of a long history. So, on 4chan, people used to say, I think it was egg roll.
Yeah.
It was if people swore, actually. I need to check because it's like a long history. But basically, if people swore on 4chan, it would change it to egg roll.
Yeah.
And so that's where the terminology came from. Then started something called duck roll, where if someone asked for something, here you go. So basically, there was a filter on 4chan that changed the word egg to duck. So if someone said the word egg roll, it would change to duck roll. Here you go. I got it link up because I didn't want to butcher it. Yeah. So then duck roll became something that people would say. And then people would post links to post a bait and switch to a picture of a duck on wheels.
Brilliant. I remember that image.
Yeah, so that became duck roll. So if someone will say, here's here's that link you're looking for, and it'd be the picture of the duck. And then that morphed into the one with the Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley.
Yeah.
And that became Rickroll. And so all this happens...
It helped reignite his career.
Pardon?
It helped reignite his career.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that. But all of this happened simply because Moot, the guy who created 4chan, decided, I'm going to just create a filter for no reason to change egg to duck. And that's created a 20-year, long...
One thing people don't realise, do you know why American English says like so often?
No, I don't.
Scooby-Doo.
I didn't know that.
It comes from Shaggy in Scooby-Doo. It was the writers trying to write a young person. It's the hello fellow kids sort of thing.
So...
And it actually became commonplace for kids to talk like that because the show was so popular.
I mean, that it's like it's not circular reasoning, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah,
of sorts, But yeah, I think it is apocryphal. But actually, just going back to where we're talking about terminology, you ever heard about the origins of the word kangaroo?
No.
So I'm like 80% sure this is apocryphal, but basically, when Captain Cook arrived in Australia.
Actually, I have heard this.
Okay, yeah. So he heard the word. He saw a kangaroo, and he asked them, "What's that?" And the Aborigine responded, "I don't understand what you're saying," which translates to kangaroo or gangaroo, I think is how he said it.
Yeah.
And so they thought he was answering the question. I like the broken telephone version of things as well. There's a lot of those, especially in countries that got colonized, due to lost in translation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've run out of topics now. It's got nowhere to lead on from that.
No, that's definitely. It's an accurate description of linguistic drift and evolution, especially in terms of memes and so forth. It's interesting to see how the online culture has changed and is still evolving. Yeah, I think even it's becoming less and less of just an online culture, but there definitely was, even about 10 years ago, I'd say, a online culture.
Yes.
When in different message boards, it didn't matter which word, there was still online overarching group. So there are certain bits that still hold out, I think, in the way people interact.
To be honest, I think people are starting to bounce back because I'm seeing there's a lot of growth in people who are trying to return, the whole return to tradition meme. Reject modernity. That's actually seeming to be a thing.
Go back to the message boards.
Pardon?
Ditch Reddit, go back to the message boards.
Well, I mean, for example, Discord and Slack, they themselves are a callback to IRCs.
Yeah.
Because there's there was this whole thing where the internet kind of grew very quickly and also became very messy. And I think I actually missed that. I think that was better. It's like a lot of people, I mean, maybe it's just nostalgia or whatever, but I think that now that it's like the fact that the reason 4chan is the source of so many memes and so many different cultural movements is simply because it's so uncontrolled. It's just like pure free will in a sense. And you can see like the fact that people joke about like sites like 9gag, whatever, and Images stealing memes and being known for stealing memes.
I watermark on it.
Yeah, and the thing is that those platforms do that, and sometimes they end up with their own memes being created, but nowhere near the rate that 4chan creates these memes.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the people, when people refer to 4chan, when they go after people as weaponized autism?
It's, again, questionably accurate.
Well, most of these... Well, that's the thing about memes as well. Is the memes that grow the most are the ones that tend to have a reflection of the truth. It's like... what was it? I've seen some great memes, and I think usually the ones that people tend to share the most are the ones that either have a reflection of the truth, or just the ones that sort of people feel they can associate with the most, even if they're not true. They like.
There's a reason the Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself meme kept going.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's that one. I was my mind jumped to one I just learned about yesterday. The Jeb Bush absolute success or absolute victory, I think it's called.
Don't know that one.
People were posting up pictures of it because they were showing pictures of him winning all the states.
Yeah.
And it's called Jeb Bush Flawless Victory.
Okay.
That's the name. I don't know why they give names to memes. It sometimes makes sense. But basically, it's a picture that showed, it was back in 2016. There's a picture that showed, because they had the electoral map, the same thing that people have been showing this year, where they're posting their own versions of the what they think will happen. And so there's a picture of, where it's a picture that shows Clinton 0, Trump 0, Jeb 538. And it's like saying that he's won all the states. And then there's like a variation of it that's even better, I think, which is, it shows the UK electoral map.
Yeah.
And it says Conservative Labour SNP 0, Jeb 100. What I found even funny about that meme is the fact that it's not even correct, like, because it says Jeb 100. Yeah. But obviously, with Trump and Clinton, it says their surnames, and I often find those little inconsistencies where there's like a slight typo or something like.
Well, again, that little inconsistency, is that actually that much different to how we started referring to certain politicians in the UK?
Well, what I mean is,
we don't call Rishi Sunak, we call him Rishi. Boris Johnson, Boris, rather than Johnson, where you don't call Theresa May Teresa.
I guess what I mean is that the fact that there's a little slight, I guess you could call it typo in the meme, kind of makes it funnier. That little inaccuracy actually kind of makes it even more ludicrous and silly. And there seems to be a lot of memes that grow that way as well, like because they are stupid or because they are not correct, not accurate.
Yeah. The definitely the idea of sort of just being able to poke fun at it and not necessarily worry about being completely correct.
Which is what makes these damn fact checks so annoying.
Oh, God, yeah.
Tangent time.
Probably, a more politically charged tangent, but I'm down with it.
No, seriously, like I was talking to my wife yesterday about it, and I showed her this video, the one that you've probably seen it going around. It's it shows the CNN reporter, and he's reporting the news, and then it cuts to another one, and on the TV, just at the top of the TV, it says Pornhub, and then the guy like swipes it away. Now he was swiping something else, and the video's edited. It wasn't actually there, but it's hilarious. It's funny, like I can chuckle at it. I don't care, like it. Like, it makes no difference whether it's real or not.
You cut out there for a second, by the way.
Oh, sorry. What'd you hear last?
Well, it came back on Pornhub.
Okay, so basically, there's a little video going around. Shows a guy. He shows a CNN reporter. Camera cuts to him, and he swipes up on the TV to like a little Pornhub thing that's popped up, and he swaps it away. Now the video was edited, and he didn't actually swap at anything. But just like those videos where you see there's some guy in the background behind the anchor is like watching porn, or someone's not supposed to be there, so they'll like drop down and crawl across the floor or something like that. Like those kind of videos. You don't think, oh, well, that's clearly proof that CNN is like a fake news organization. No, you just kind of, it's funny for its own sake, whether it's real or not. But immediately under all of these videos, there's like a fact check, doctored video, or like I think Twitter's got manipulated media, and it's like, I don't care. It's funny.
And there is also the bigger issue with this of these fact checks still being an arbiter of truth.
Yes, absolutely.
Which feels very, very much 1984 Ministry of Truth sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I've been referring to Facebook's version. I learned the term recently, but the term gish galloping?
No.
It's apparently when a person will basically, I'm gonna Google it because I don't want to paraphrase. It's a technique using during debating that focuses on overwhelming an opponent with as many arguments as possible without regard for accuracy or strength of the arguments. And so when there's a someone on Facebook who she keeps posting. You probably know Kim Fan or Kim Possible.
Yes.
Yeah. She posts up, and like every one of her posts gets fact checked. And at this point, like she posted one, and it had like 8 to 10 fact check articles on it. And it's like, no one's going to read every single one of those. I mean, I assume, if I'm looking good faith, right, I'm going to assume Facebook's done that just in case maybe you distrust one of them. You might want to read one of the other ones that you do trust. Maybe fair enough. But it just comes out like, seems like you're just trying to make it look like, look, see, all these people said it's false, so it's obviously false.
Yeah.
And it's like, but like you say.
Not decided.
And what's worse is...
Truth is not decided by a court of public opinion.
Yeah, that's true. Well, obviously, there was an argument to majority, was it?
Yeah, appeal to majority.
Yeah, appeal to majority. And that's why I get really annoyed with the, scientific consensus. But that's a different argument, different conversation.
Science is not done by consensus. If it was done by consensus, we would never have achieved the heliocentric model.
That is true, yeah. And that's why I'm glad, like, this is why as well, like, Short Fat Otaku?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a video recently. I don't agree with him all the time. Like, I agree with him 80% of the time, 90% of the time. And he made this video, and he just said, look, I don't really like Trump, but looking at all of the stuff coming out, it kind of seems like something could have happened. It's not impossible.
Yeah.
And he says, so, assuming Biden got the election legitimately, if there's a reason to believe that he might not have, isn't it worth checking? Don't you want to make sure that he got it legitimately? And meanwhile, then all the media organizations have already decided that Trump's lost. I knew this would come back to the US election.
but then again, back in 2000, the media had decided that Al Gore won. And do you remember President Gore? I don't either.
I wasn't in politics either, but yeah, I have seen that going around now. People have been saying, well, he was president for like 34 days or something, according to the media. Yeah. But yeah, I think, honestly, that's why this fact-checking stuff is really bad. It's the same thing as what I think you and I talked about always blaming Russia for everything. Is it only creates distrust in the people saying that it's not true. Like, I'm trying to think of an example, but the way I came up with a fact check, I was talking to my wife about this. It's like when you tell a joke that's maybe not accurate but funny, and someone walks in and goes, "Well, actually, this is not," and it's like, look,
oh god, the fact checkers are the "well, actually" meme.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking in my head when I thought of that. But the thing is, what's really bad is I'm one of those people. I'm the "well, actually" guy, and I know this. I'm seeing this, and I'm like, I've had to learn to just say, right, okay, well, it's not accurate, but fair enough. Okay, whatever. Just ignore it. Just let it go. And the media organizations that are fact-checking all these things, all these fact-checkers, they're not learning it. Or I don't think they're going to anyway.
You cut out for a minute there.
All right. I was just saying the media organizations that they're not learning this whole, that they are the well, actually guy. They're not learning that it's not about the accuracy necessarily. And just telling people they're wrong. That
accuracy is important.
It's true. It's true. And that's... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, in the middle of a joke, no. In the middle of something that's a properly scripted explanation of something, yes, it's important to be accurate.
I suppose we can't expect anything else with the fact that people are taking jokes so seriously these days.
Yeah.
It's only natural that they're going to start to fact-check jokes.
Has its own issues in itself.
Oh, yeah.
As much as say you can't tell these jokes, like I dislike that as an argument because, as I think it was Ricky Gervais said it along the lines of, you can, just people aren't laughing because it's not a funny joke.
Yeah, and obviously a comedian's job is to make people laugh. So if,
on the other hand, then you look at what happened with Count Dankula.
Exactly. Well, that's what I mean. Is I've been to a Count Dankula's set. Like, he was back just before the lockdown, back in February. I went to like an event that Sargon had, and it was him, Zuby, and Dankula.
Yeah.
And I think they didn't publicize any of the stuff. They wanted to have no recording and such, but Denkuler's set was great.
Yeah.
Like, it was really funny. It was really good. And I'm like, look, if people don't find a comedian funny or they find him offensive because of, like, you know, if there's enough people to do that, then, you know, the comedian's not going to make any money.
Yeah.
And that's what frustrates me so much. It's like, that's what the whole cancel culture is all about, is, moving on to that, is that it's not about whether the person who's hired a guy or the person that's paying the person. It's like, you know that meme where there's a man and a woman that's like, the man says, I consent, and the woman says, I consent, and the third person goes, I don't. It's like that. It's like some third party just walks in and says, that joke's not funny, so you're not allowed to tell it. And it's just like, you know, half the time, the person, I mean, the history of comedians and hecklers or whatever, people are like, stand up and say, excuse me, you can't tell that joke, is like the norm. And it's now the hecklers are the media and the people on Twitter decide to send a mob after someone. I mean, there's also, I think, was it you or someone else who told me about James Gunn, like getting the whole tactic that...
I heard about that, yeah.
So, like, the whole thing with James Gunn getting cancelled was to use the tactics the left use against them.
Yeah.
And they completely missed the point. Instead, they went, see, the Conservatives are so awful because they cancel people. And it's just like, missed the point. But no surprise there, really. But yeah, so, I mean, obviously, I think you and I are both going to agree that people should be allowed. If people want to tell a joke or want to say something, they should just be allowed to.
If someone's listening to this and has gone this far without realising that we're sort of the very pro-free speech sort of thing, then sorry to shock you.
To be honest, I actually kind of fall in line with something that Sargon called himself. It's a free speech absolutist.
Yeah.
Like, to a degree, I even think that the whole yelling fire in a crowded theatre thing...
Yeah, I agree. It should be, you shouldn't do it, but you should be allowed to.
Yeah, I think using social ostracization works well enough.
Yeah.
Like, if someone does that and everyone looks down on them for the problem they caused them, you know, the damage is done.
But, I mean, that's a question in itself, though, is what is cancelling by a lot of things, is that not just social ostracization?
The difference, I think, is the third party. So, for example, there was a guy, a footballer, years back, that got... he was talking to some 16-year-old girl. Now, she lied about her age, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
This is years back, so I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that.
This, he met them in a club where they weren't meant to be in anyway because they were meant to check the door.
I might have been, yeah. But there were a whole bunch of texts between him and her. And anyway, he got caught out and he got sent to jail.
Right. Not the one I'm thinking.
I think it was a few months. Because he didn't do anything with the girl. He was just texting her. And I think there was some inappropriate discussion or something like that. So that's what he got charged with. Something like that. It's quite a long time back. But after he got out of jail, his football club, went to rehire him. Yeah. You know, because, I mean, he's done his time. He served his sentence. He's paid back, you know, as crimes are meant to be a payment for a crime. As sentences are meant to be a payment for a crime. He paid that, and basically a whole bunch of people who probably don't even play football, watch football, said he shouldn't be allowed to rejoin the club, and started pushing the club. Not even boycotting the club, I think, because like I said, they weren't even. I think that's the difference. It's that you got people calling for boycotts who aren't customers in the first place. If it's kind of like what's going on with the Comicsgate, you know, where
I know Comicsgate a lot. And the comics industry, it's a lot of issues in itself anyway. Yeah, I'll happily say the comics industry, insofar that I don't buy comics, I buy trade paperbacks.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help keep comics going, because things don't get published into trade paperbacks unless they're successful comics. But at the same point, there was a comic book shop in my town, literally directly opposite where that shut down after about 6 weeks of it opening. There is one in town about 5 miles away. But at the same point, I'm not paying £3 to £5 per comic for, I don't know, 20 pages of mostly adverts. Whereas if you look at what you were getting value for money with 50 years ago, because I've got some decent old comics, you get far, far fewer adverts. So even if you adjust the cost for inflation, you're getting far less value for money now.
Yeah.
Never mind the whole Comicsgate side of things.
The content of the comments.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's about ethics in hammer welding.
Yeah. My point is
actual line. I still can't believe that was an actual thing they wrote in a Marvel comic.
It's definitely like there's a whole bunch of that. I mean, there's the whole thing with female Thor and.
But the thing is, again, with the female Thor thing, was never opposed to it and stuff because there's many characters that have been Thor. Beta Ray Bill. If a horse-faced alien can become Thor, then yeah, Jane Foster can become Thor as well.
Yeah,
it's really, really poorly written.
Yes, that's usually what it is. It's the same as like having a female doctor. It's the same with all of these things. Usually, one, it's co-opting an existing franchise. That's always what happens. Well, not always, but that's usually what happens because the ones that don't flop.
To an extent, because then if you look at diverse characters that have succeeded in comic books, look at Miles Morales or.
Well, the thing is, he was established a long time ago, and
no, he wasn't.
Wasn't he? I heard.
Miles Morales was only introduced in the Ultimates universe in the mid-2000s.
Okay, that's a long time ago to me.
Okay.
I do know they've been around since the 60s, so relatively it's not that long ago.
I think it's mid-2000s. It might even be later than that, actually.
See, I wasn't really reading comics before like 2007, so...
2011, Miles Morales first appeared.
Oh, that's interesting. I must have picked it up much later then, because I remember like one of the first comics I was reading with him.
Yeah. No, I remember that being a big thing when they killed off Peter Parker. Spoilers, by the way. When they killed Peter Parker in the Ultimates universe.
To be honest, that's just like saying they killed off, what's it like when they kill off Iron Man, they kill off Thor.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, it's always temporary, okay? So.
Oh no, in the Ultimates universe it wasn't. That was actually a big thing. It was separate from the main universe.
Ah, okay, so spoilers for people reading the Ultimate Universe.
Well, they finished the Ultimate Universe in 2015 anyway, so...
I think the main... I'll be honest, I don't read that many comics. The main ones I picked up on are like Injustice.
Yeah. Injustice.
Ultimate Iron Man and Gwenpool?
Yeah.
Really
I hate it so much.
I don't. I enjoyed it.
Well written, don't get me wrong. But the idea of just, let's throw Gwen Stacy and Deadpool into a character, sure. Why not? Just it's such a mindless, unnecessary character.
I think I found the concept very interesting, and when it's like obviously it ran out of steam very quick. It's kind of like a series. It's kind of like Westworld, great first series, season, brilliant first season, but after it kind of used up all of its amazing concept in the first season, you kind of not sure after that. Don't know if you watched that. But yeah, so where was I going actually? I was talking. So basically, what I was saying is that with Comicsgate, my issue with that was the fact that the people who are calling for things to be changed are not the customers, and so the things end up failing because they change.
Yeah, because
they alienate their own audience, the actual customers.
I'm not necessarily sure that's true, because I think it's not because I think it's because they change and they're not good. Because there have been a lot of things that have changed in comic a year. But as long as something good comes out of it. If you look at Cap, where they completely changed his powers and design completely from the ground up. And I'd say popular hero. lot of people don't. Captain Britain is probably my favourite superhero because rule Britannia and all that. I think it's a really interesting character that gets skipped over. He gets his powers literally from fucking Merlin. Sorry, you're gonna have to bleep that out there.
I'm probably not gonna bother.
He gets his powers literally from Merlin, so he's not just British Captain America.
Yeah,
there's a load of really cool bits of his character there. But like I say, he used to have his power from a staff, and then they changed it, and he doesn't need the staff. Like, they got rid of it completely, and then he's now the brother of one of the X-Men.
Yeah, right. It gets a bit weird sometimes when
definitely.
When you look into the comics end up being like some of these not sitcoms, some of these soaps.
Mm.
Like when after a while it's like he killed his mother's brother's uncle, and actually that makes no sense. But
See, I compare comics more to classical mythology. I think comics and films are the new modern mythology. Obviously, a lot of heroes are on the ideas of ancient gods and so forth.
Oh yes, no. In terms of the hero, definitely.
But also in terms of the way people interact with it, because everyone knows a bit of a story in comic books. You don't need to know the whole bit of Spider-Man's life. You don't need to know that when he was at university, he shared his room with Captain Britain.
Yeah, no, of course. It's like I can't remember who I watched. I think might have been Sideways or Critical Drinker. One of these analysis shows was talking about the hero and what the hero represents, and the reason Superman is such the most popular superhero typically is because of what he represents. And so if you take that away,
I'm going to go on a Superman rant here because I have very, very strong opinion on the Superman Lex Luthor thing.
Okay.
Lex Luthor is the best comic character ever created.
Okay, I'm down to discuss this. I have no strong opinions myself.
Lex Luthor is not a villain.
Okay.
Lex Luthor, yes, he gets played as a mad scientist point a lot of the time, but the point of Lex Luthor more so is he does not want humanity to fail. Lex Luthor is a self-made man. He is one of the richest people on the planet. He becomes president at one point. He is one of the most physically fit people on the planet, literally probably only beaten out by Batman. He is one of the most intelligent people on the planet, one of the most successful people on the planet. He is, for all wants of a definition, peak human.
I honestly thought you were going to say Overman. Connotations aside.
His biggest flaw being his ego.
Yes.
And
so he's Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, if he could run... Elon Musk crossed with Usain Bolt.
Okay, right, yeah.
And so it feeds into his ego in the sense that he does that to give people something to aspire to.
Yeah.
He wants people to try and be like him. He wants to sort of be that proof that, yeah, you can lift yourself up by your bootstraps.
So he's actually leading by example.
Trying to, yeah. Apart from, ego notwithstanding.
Yeah.
But then Superman comes along. And suddenly, you can no matter how hard you try, no matter how good you are, you're never going to be as good as the man that can move faster than a speeding bullet, leap tall buildings in a single bound, and shoot lasers from it. You're never going to be that good.
Yeah.
So Lex Luthor thinks that's going to make people say, well, why should I try?
I see.
That's Lex Luthor's biggest issue with Superman, as well as the ego bit of it as well. And that's sort of the point but what Superman is then trying to do is bring people up. Superman's trying to give an example as well. There's this wonderful scene in one of the comics. I can't remember what comic it is, actually. But Batman and Superman are meeting in Metropolis Park at night because that's what they do. And one of the security guards walking around and spots them, people in park after it's shut, shouldn't be there. Oh, who's that? Oh, okay, it's Superman. And the guard turns around and says, I know I don't have to worry now that you're here. Which, I think that is proof in point of what Lex Luthor's character is about, being right. That guard immediately says, I don't really have to do my job now that Superman and Batman are in this park.
I remember that scene. I'm sure I watched an analysis video that was about this or something like that. But
And yeah, that's the importance of Lex Luthor as a character, because Lex Luthor, his character, is trying to be the example for humanity.
But obviously, he Superman, like you say, he's trying to lead by example. But it's like I'm trying to think of an example. I can't really think of an example right now. But it's obviously the fact that the person cannot be Superman because of his powers.
Superman can provide a moral example. And this is the point, that Superman has that moral guidance that Lex Luthor doesn't have as much. But, and that's where they complement each other a lot. It's also why Batman and Superman work well together as well, because they sort of complement each other's lacking qualities.
Yeah. I do know what you mean. No, you are right. I think, I can't remember what I was on about before this, but I'm not sure. I wasn't so much talking about what the superheroes represent, I guess. But you're completely right, because there is you are right about them becoming the mythology. Like, I mean, they're not the only mythology, but they are a sort of.
The thing is, you know when Superman was first published, Action Comics 27, I think it is. Do you know what year that came out?
I know it was a long, long time ago.
1937.
Right, I had the 30s in my head, but I don't want to.
Batman was 1939, I believe.
Yeah.
These characters are older than Lord of the Ring.
That is a thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, people just turn around and still treat them as. But the thing is, people know who Superman is and know Superman's basic backstory without having ever read a comic.
Yeah.
This is why it made front page news on the New York Times when they killed off Superman in the early 90s. Like,
so
these characters are so part of an ingrained cultural mythology now.
Well, it's like you say, it's not whether or not they exist; it's the example they provide, and that's what Roger Scruton talks about. What was it called? Why Beauty Matters. I don't know if you've ever watched that. It's a document.
I might have done.
It's a documentary by Scruton about. He compares modern art to classical art, and he just talks about how art provides an example of what can be, not what is. Like the mythologies, I think, do the same. They are not necessarily meant to be what you are, what life is. That's the problem, I think, with some of these, like you talk about these bad rewrites, is they don't understand that heroes are not supposed to be just like you. They're supposed to be what you could be. If you
fall back or worse as well, it's one of the reasons It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia had such a following, because it's a load of terrible people. I think it's a case of, this is as funny as this is, and it's poking fun at how terrible they are, but it also has that human aspect of, this is what people could be if everyone decided terrible.
I think that's one of the things I loved to go to to bring in Godwins Law. It's one of the things it's one thing I loved about Man in the High Castle, the series.
Yeah.
I mean, it got a bit weird with the sci-fi when they brought in spoilers. Anyone's watched it? Don't like.
Mute. Oh yeah. Spoilers for a series based on a Philip K. Dick novel published in what, the 60s?
Hey, I had not read it, so it would be spoilers if I was watching the series right now. So if anyone's not watched the whole show yet, this is a spoiler alert. You
can jump the timestamp on screen.
I'll put one up when we stop talking about this. But yeah, so essentially, when they brought in the parallel universes, I think the start of season 2, it got a bit weird. I was just like, okay, I'm not sure if this is better or worse or whatever. But once you start seeing that they are comparing the I don't know if he's the main character, but John, he's like in the Nazi America, he's like so brilliant at being a Nazi. He's like, he's ruthless and like he's cunning, he's clever, he's brilliant at leading, he's like a good role model for leaders. And because he was given that bit of power, it fed into this part of his personality. Meanwhile, in the real, like, to our own timeline, the real world, he's, a family man, he's kind and caring and nice and all this. And he's so different simply because of a small change. And he realizes at the end of the series, spoiler again, he realizes that there is no stopping him. He can't change. He can't be like the guy in the original world. He can't, because the fact that he's living in this world as Nazi America that feeds into that power that it gives him license in a sense. And knowing that he can become that, and in the world that he's in, there's no way he's not going to become that. I don't know if you know this, but at the end of the show, he shoots himself. He kills himself.
I think this is actually... It ties into something I've said a while, if we're going full Godwins Law.
Go on.
That I think, and controversial point here, the demonization of Nazis is one of the worst things we've done in the past half century.
This ties into our slavery conversation earlier. I think I know what you're on about.
Because once you start demonizing Nazis, or anyone really, to the point of they're so horrible, no one can be them, they're not human anymore.
Yes,
You
no, you're right.
It was so easy for people to become part of that, to join in with that.
And then tie that into the throwing around the accusation of Nazi, like any other word. You're absolutely right there. No, you're right.
Branding someone as a Nazi gives you a free pass to say whatever and do whatever you want to them, because they're a Nazi. They're horrible. They're not even human. They're subhuman. They're awful.
Yeah, and who
so and no one. We could never be. No, we can never be as bad as the Nazis.
Yes,
it's so egoistic and naive at the same time to think humanity can never fall that far again. It has done it, will do.
This ties again into what Jordan Peterson talks about, and it's like you need to recognize the I think he refers to it as the dragon, but everyone within themselves has evil.
Yeah, and
if you can't recognize that, you will succumb to it more likely than someone else.
Yeah, they say the road to hell is paved with good intention.
Oh, of course. I think that most movies, the hero's journey in general, sort of mimics this. This whole element of what a good man is. And this is, I think, Doctor Who at its best summarizes this, is a good man is not someone who does no evil. A good man is someone who resists doing it.
There is... I think it's one of my favourite episodes of Doctor Who in Matt Smith's tenure. I think it's like the second episode or so he did, where they're on a spaceship powered by a space whale. Because
sci-fi.
Doctor Who. Yeah, and he lobotomizes the whale because that's sort of he shouts his command himself and says no human. Because his choice is either kill the whale and the city thousands of people will die in this city, sort of thing. And
you cut out there just a bit. Just when you said he shouts.
Yeah, he shouts at his companion and saying no human has the right to speak to me today, because he's making a choice that is that much. He either sets the whale free, which will doom the entire city riding on its back, or he kills the whale. The bear in mind, the city being powered by it puts the whale in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
So, in fact, he lobotomizes the whale so it can't feel any pain.
Yeah.
Which, it's that anything he does then is not about doing something good. It's just doing the least terrible thing.
It's kind of utilitarian, but you're right.
It's not so utilitarian. It's a case of what are the other options?
Yeah.
Let it continue to suffer. Let.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing is partially that's a reflection of the good man. So, a good man. I mean, that's why they had that whole line in Doctor Who that I can't remember the first part of the sentence, but they had the whole "when a good man goes to war" phrase.
Yeah.
I think it was something trembles. I'm gonna find.
Yeah. It. It's something along those.
Apparently, it's a poem. look it up. Okay. Demons run when a good man goes to war. Night will fall and drown the sun when a good man goes to war. That's part of it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that's part of it. Is that the fact that he says no humans can speak to me today, right? That means, because obviously I think his whole connection with humans, the reason he obviously, I love how we're talking about Doctor Who now, but the fact that he connects with humans is because that's like how he maintains sort of a moral compass.
Yeah.
That's how he keeps a bit of, because he sees the companions often help him remain moral. But when he says no human can talk to me today, that's because he can recognize in himself that he's done something immoral. He's doing something that he regards as cruel. And so he feels like, I think when he says no human can speak to me, it might just be due to distancing himself, but it's also, I would say, just thinking about it, that could be a reflection of the fact that he feels unworthy.
Yeah.
He knows he's done something, and so he is saying, you can't speak to me because I don't deserve you to speak to me. But there's also a reflection of what you said there. What was it? Making the difficult choice of lobotomizing the whale there. That's indicative of the leader, the person who makes the tough choices, how you don't always have a morally right decision. I think, and I don't even know if Stephen Moffat intended that. I know he's a pretty good writer.
Yeah. The episode's called The Beast Below. I'm trying to find who wrote it. It was written by Moffat himself, actually, this one.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. I mean, that whole poem is by him, and also, it seems like there is a whole stance of that, and there's a lot of TV shows that have been written and built. Obviously, Doctor Who is decades old and has obviously got a culture within it that I think a lot of new people might not respect it. And that culture is one that recognizes that the hero is not the person who does good all the time. The hero is a person who makes a difficult choice if they have to, and tries to do the best they can. Because it's a bit like obviously I can name a number of films that have come out where the hero or heroine are just good. Everything they do is good. Everything they do is great. There's nothing bad they can do. They have no flaws. As the commonly known as Gary or Mary Stu. And I think that is an indication of a writer who doesn't understand what a hero is, to put it simply.
Yeah.
And that's what Superman is.
Superman's an interesting one on that because Superman doesn't have flaws. The flaws with Superman comes from, I think, the flaws in humanity, the people he has to interact with, rather than Superman himself.
Okay. Yeah, no, I see that. I was just thinking of Injustice, actually, myself, because that's one of the main ones I've read. Because that one posed an interesting moral question.
Definitely. There's the thing with Superman. What makes Superman a interesting character is he is one of those heroes that didn't have to undergo a traumatic event to become a hero.
Yeah.
He's the point of Superman is that he is, for all intents and purposes, human. He doesn't find out he's an alien until he's 18 or so.
Yeah.
He is just this kid from Kansas that was raised right, and even if he didn't have powers, he would still be out there doing good.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's sort of the example. He is meant to be what humanity can be.
True, but obviously you got the whole. I think the whole idea of the moral being the moral guy, leader, and that's where it becomes very interesting with Injustice, because I don't know if you've ever seen the scene where Superman and Flash are debating. That's a big one.
They're playing chess.
Yeah. And the clever thing is they've got the chess game itself is reflecting the debate, which is clever. But yeah, that whole idea of, and the funny thing is that Injustice perfectly encompasses the world we're in right now with the lockdown.
Yeah.
Full circle. So the whole idea of this decision between, do you give people the freedom to make mistakes and do wrong, or do you restrict everyone to protect them?
I'm currently reading Herbert State, and there's a line in it. I need to find this quickly. It's something along the lines of liberalism no longer means freedom of the individual to do as the right of the state and nation to subordinate all the high interests of man to its own unchecked.
You've cut out a bit.
Well, where did I cut out?
It was intermittent, so I can't really say.
I was saying I've been reading Herbert Spencer's Man State, and there's a line in this that's
cut out again.
Oh, good lord! I've been reading Herbert Spencer's Man versus the State.
Man versus the State. Okay, yeah, got it.
And there's a line. It's only in the introduction that I feel is quite pertinent to that. It's saying that modern liberalism, and bear in mind this was written in 1884. Modern liberalism is no longer about the freedoms of humanity and so forth, but the right of the state and nation to subordinate all the high interests of man to its own unchecked power.
I'm inclined to agree. Yeah, I do feel like there's been a shift.
The state actually is itself a natural attempt to limit the excess of natural liberty, so a truer kind of freedom can be found for the mass of the people.
It's kind of narcissistic, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
I do find... I did a video recently because I was feeling, to put, for lack of a better word, blackpilled. Just looking... I think we and I discussed this recently. But just looking at the whole way the world goes, yeah, we did discuss this now I think about it. Just looking at the way the world goes, it seems like that's what happens, is that you got people who end up narcissistically believing in their own abilities, and like you say, you end up with a ruling. I'd say a ruling class. It's not really a ruling class. It's a number of individuals. I mean, because like for example, you got Jess Phillips. I don't know all the MPs, so I'm just going to draw on it. She's clearly not like some upper class, well educated, like high. I don't know. Maybe
perfectly fine.
Yeah, as much as anyone else's, which to me is nothing. It's awful.
But she's not exactly she's not an Etonian graduate, sort of.
Yeah, no, she's not from like the sort of elite, but she has obviously been put in a position of power, and I think that has affected her to the point where she's willing to tell Muslims that they're not proper Muslims.
Yeah,
it's like, who do you think you are?
Oh, who was it? The MP that said that people should shut up for the sake of diversity.
Wasn't that Ash Sarkar?
No, that was an MP. My personal favourite was a couple of days ago. The not in a position of power, US celebrity used to date 50 Cent.
Naz Shah.
Ah, yes, yeah.
I think she didn't say it. I think she retweeted it.
Yeah,
but same thing, according to Twitter.
There's touche, yeah. No, there was a US celebrity on the Jimmy talk shows, and she used to date 50 Cent. I can't remember her name, but she turned around to him and she said that I had to remind 50 Cent that he was black.
Yeah, I heard about that.
You're black. You can't vote for Trump.
Did you see the Babylon Bee's response to that?
No.
Oh, I think it was the Babylon Bee anyway. Maybe a meme otherwise. There was a thing of her saying that she was standing outside. She made her job. She stood outside the polling center to just remind any of the black voters that they're black.
Oh, God.
But the thing is, there is this sort of narcissistic view, and I think it happens amongst the sort of democratic view as well. It's like that. There was that study that was done that showed that Democratic members or supporters have a tendency to use more racialized language and tend to lower the I don't know what the word is, but just lower the talk as though they're talking to someone less intelligent.
Yeah.
When they're talking to a black person.
Yeah. But it's part of this whole, for want of a better term, the white saviour complex.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's definitely it. And
if you look at how that attempt at inclusivity has backfired, like I heard this the other day about the US election in Florida, that Biden won the Latin X vote, but
yeah,
the Latino vote.
that was brilliantly put. I did see that. Yeah, it's kind of like, you got this. You do have these two spheres, and I think, in a way, we're going to have to come up with another term, because I think it's stopped being a white savior thing. It is largely white people, I think, that have it. Or as Sargon likes to put it, the white supremacist with a guilty conscience. Because they believe that white people are the better. Same way as a politician believes that they're better than you, because
this then ties neatly back to earlier, where if you aren't willing to accept that the horrible crimes of the past were committed by people, then and think yourself infallible, then it gives you that blanche free path.
Yeah, and what's even worse is, like you talk about, again, this tied back to the right at the start, where you're talking about the progressive view. You believe that everything you're doing is better. It's better than what the people his past did, that you are more knowledgeable than them. And the funny thing is, it's like we talk about that, it's like with the low resolution views, is that I think we live in a world right now where people have low resolution views but don't think they do. Yeah. And so you end up, like, with people questioning everything around them as though they know better, but they don't actually know better because they don't know what they're talking about. Everyone's an expert. Whereas at the same time, you've got people who, like in the past, some working class guy would do things a certain way because that's just the way they're done. You wouldn't, and I think the working class still do that largely, and I think that's probably why they're better for it. Whereas you've got a lot of people now who believe that the system they're in is corrupt, and even though they don't actually fully understand the system they're in, they know better. And
this would all work if I was in charge.
Or was it Jordan Peterson says about socialism? Was it that? What was it? I can't remember the exact line now. It was it would have worked if I was the dictator or something like that.
Yeah. It's very true that that's how a lot of people seem to think, whether they or don't realise that that's how they are thinking. That's the other point, that because people have a low resolution view as such, people aren't willing to do this introspection.
Yeah,
I appreciate this may sound like sort of it's a big brain take and may sound very, but I'm willing to do this introspection. Why can't you all accept everyone's fault?
Well, that's what I mean. You and I both fall into that exact same thing. We might not feel like we do. I think recognizing that in itself helps to grow. Like being able to know, like seeing yourself as fallible. Because I'm sure you see yourself as fallible. You admit that you are. And I think that the problem is a lot of politicians and some of these white saviors and so on believe that they are not. And by the way, the reason I said I think we should eliminate the white savior part, because maybe not necessarily white savior, is that I've seen a similar personality trait amongst a lot of black people who are Democrat supporters and who look down on other black people.
Liberal savior, a better term then.
Yeah, okay, I can go for that.
I don't know. The idea of effectively being a savior to anyone itself,
true,
is egoistic to say the least.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, I've and I think that's what one of the things I like about Donald Trump is that he's not tried to do that.
No, like he's done. He's done I think he's doing more the Lex Luthor tie that in again of not necessarily trying to lift people up, but by trying to give people something to kind of emulate.
Yeah,
in his business success and so forth.
At
least maybe not in his personality, but
true. I mean, if you look at all his actions as well, like every time, like when he has to come out against the big tech, he didn't create more laws. He looked at removing a regulation.
Yeah.
He didn't increase taxes to help people. He lowered taxes to help people.
His view isn't necessarily pull people up, it's give them the freedom to push themselves up.
Yeah, I think I managed to convert a Labour supporting friend of mine because he was feeling he was looking at all the stuff going on with Labour and he was kind of having a kind of, like he said he likes it when I post on his feed, even though he knows I'm like a member of UKIP and everything. Like he says he always knows that he's going to get like a good response, at least a well thought out one. So I started talking to him about it. Like he mentioned to me about we were having a conversation about increasing taxes to help people, and I pointed out to him. I just said to him, look, if you increase taxes, all of the businesses are going to have to pay their employees more. And then because they have to pay their employees more. So like I think we actually know, we're talking about minimum wage now, I think about it. And I said to him, if you increase minimum wage, then you have to increase the amount that all businesses pay people, because all those businesses have to pay their employees more, that cost more for them to grow. And because like a company like Tesco won't want to lower their profits, they'll just increase the prices of the products.
Yeah.
And then like the guy who rents out his house is going to have to pay more to live, because everything costs more. All the
so you had to explain to him the basic concept of inflation.
I suppose, yes, but I don't. He's like, he was willing to listen to it, so that's definitely better than most. But I basically just pointed out that like if you increase the cost in one place, then it'll just increase the cost across the board.
Unfortunately, this thing, all of these systems are so complex and incredibly linked. Jordan Peterson said something along those lines as well, that people are looking at this incredibly complex system and just saying, I can do better than that. Like, no, you're looking at just like a small part of it. You might be able to do better on that part, but that's going to affect everything else.
Yeah. Well, it's like that quote from G.K. Chesterton that make sure that you know what you are dismantling before you dismantle it. You need to understand why it is there, why it exists before. And that's a lot of the problem, I think, is that, like you talk about these low resolution liberal saviors who believe that they fully understand the world. And we've all been there. We've all, but unless you break out of it. And unfortunately, I think a lot of them are in a social circle where they can't break out of it. You do get people who do sometimes. You ever see Lacey Green?
Yeah.
Like the way that Sargon kind of, I believe that he was one of the main people to push her away from SJW-ism. Because, he sat down with her in a pub and he talked to her, and he apologized for some of the things he'd said to her, because he knew that, he knows that he's a very antagonistic guy. And it's easy to get antagonistic on like Twitter and stuff like that. And, I think that...
definitely.
And this is one of the things that frustrates me, is you get a lot of people who look at someone. So there's like clips of Sargon where he's just saying, look, I'm not a very smart guy. And people point that out and be like, haha, see, he's not very smart. He said so himself. And they completely miss the point that that's pointing out that he's able to admit his own fallibility.
Yeah. Whereas everyone else is people that turn around and say, no, I'm smart. No, that doesn't...
Yeah, you and I are obviously so conceited that we've created this little podcast to talk about.
We assume wants to hear what we want to say.
Yeah, and for a long time I didn't post any stuff. I wouldn't. I'd not post things on Facebook. I'd not post stuff on any videos and things. But I kind of realized, look, odds are I'm going to say a whole bunch of things that other people have said before. But there might be a chance that either one, I say something that someone hasn't said before, just slightly different, just enough to maybe different perspective, or two, I will reach someone that wasn't reached by the ideas I'm echoing. Like, for example, I might say something that someone who's never watched Jordan Peterson can hear and then take on that view and realize, hey, that's a good idea. Maybe I should check out this guy. And that's if
we can be the gateway drug to liberalism.
I'm going to be really narcissistic and say the gateway drug to enlightenment. No, but in all seriousness, it's good to just hear people out, and I think that,
that's as we've said when we were discussing setting this up. One of the things I want, fairly, just be able to have open discussions about potentially antagonistic things in themselves.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about Dave Rubin's show as well, because I've watched that more than the trigonometry stuff. But I found lots of new people to sort of listen to and just hear. And Joe Rogan as well, with his interviews with Edward Norton and Edward Snowden and like Elon Musk, like it really gives an insight into the personality of a person, and it kind of changes your perspective. And obviously, like most people who are sort of sure of themselves in every way aren't going to watch an interview with, like, let's say, Elon Musk, because they believe that they already know everything there is to know.
Yeah.
And I've seen some complete. I think you and I did talk about this. I've seen some complete lies put out about him, and it makes no sense. It's like, how could you possibly believe that? But that's when I realized. Like, I realized yesterday, though, with this whole thing where they're saying, Joe Biden's won, Joe Biden's won, Joe Biden's won. There's this whole thing where now that the method is the way you're right is by repeating yourself until people believe there's no other way to be right. There's no other reality. And it actually becomes that. It becomes a shifting of reality itself, where because a person doesn't have access to a counter-narrative, or maybe they just denounced all counter-narratives as conspiracies, you end up with their entire view of reality being different to that of the rest of the world.
Oceania was always at war with Eurasia.
Exactly. And then, what was it? Doesn't it change to East Asia?
Eurasia, Oceania, and... might be East Asia.
There was East something. Hold on. It's like halfway through the book, it just switches and no one says anything.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, is like you got this whole Joe Biden won. And then you watch. If the court case comes out, if the courts find it, they will pretend they never stated. They never said that it's like the fact that they're completely ignoring the fact that they said that Joe Biden was going to win in the landslide. Spiked did a magazine about this. They pointed out that, sure, maybe Joe Biden's won by the biggest votes, like most votes in history. But Trump's just got the second most in history.
Yeah.
So, for the most despicable and vile person that everyone hates and you're not going to get any votes, the fact that he got, 70 million?
Yeah.
That's 70 million people who either are denying reality. Fascists. Yeah.
Very clearly, that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's 70 million alt-right Russian patrol bots.
No. Haven't you heard the election can't be rigged?
No, well, no, it can, because Russian bots. It can be rigged for Trump, and that's it.
That's true. If it's the other way, it's not rigging. It's just and fair. That's the way it works.
It's adjusting the vote to be correct.
That is actually a really good way to put it. I love that. But yeah,
this is what bugs me. It should surely be in both parties' interests to have a free and fair election. And I would much rather that the candidate I prefer lost fairly than win illegitimately.
Well, that's the point that Short of Ataki was trying to put across. It's just saying, look, if you support Joe Biden, don't you want to know that he's actually legitimately won? Yeah. Without a doubt. Like, if there's doubts. And obviously, if they ignore it, like I saw a poll last night that was asking if this whole theory that the ballots were watermarked. That's been going around, and I don't know if it's true. And if they were, then obviously they'll be able to prove without a doubt which ballots were fake. Yeah. But if someone made a poll saying, like, if that comes out, do you think that it'll be proven right? And then the second option was, do you I think that the result will be ignored. Like, even if they're proven true that the ballots were fake and there's this watermark, it'll just get ignored. And I didn't want to answer that because I was thinking, look, while I do think that the media would try and ignore it, I don't believe the media have all the power. Like, the fact that Trump was limited in places, and the fact that he couldn't bring down a lockdown, at least not legitimately, is proof of the US three-tier system with the three branches of government. And I still love the fact that it's like, look, Biden got all these votes, but we didn't want to vote out Mitch McConnell though. Yeah, don't worry about him or Lindsey Graham. Not enough Democrats wanted to get rid of him. They just wanted to go with Trump apparently. Because there's a remark like I think the Republicans lost one seat
Yeah, something like that.
And surely, if all these states voted against Trump,
Yeah, but Orange Man bad.
exactly. I mean, I can see the theory that a lot of the people might have been Republican supporters who just hated Trump and they just want to get rid of him. They don't care if Biden's in. They support Republicans and they just voted against Biden. Voted against Trump, sorry. And they supported the Republicans everywhere else. I can see that being true, but I'd like to see it proven.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Unfortunately, this constant uncertainty, if that's going to be lingering over Biden's term, unless it's properly looked into.
That's true. And, I mean, look, they spent 4 years just about looking into the Russian scandal, so fair's fair, right?
Exactly. And also, now that if Biden is in charge and does win, then any civil unrest and so forth and all that's now Biden's fault, right?
I saw you post that on Facebook. Yeah, that's probably true.
No, but it's going to be, this is all a left hangover from when Trump was in charge. Trump caused all this and Biden's just trying to fix it.
Have you ever heard, there's actually a phrase in regards to these court cases, there's a quote from On Liberty. Just trying to get it. Oh, 1 sec. Got it. Okay. Those who dissent, if the opinion is right. Oh wait, let me get to the whole quote. Just trying to see where to start. The peculiar evil of silencing the expression of an opinion is that it is robbing the human race, or America in this case, posterity, as well as the existing generation, those who dissent from the opinion. Okay, so I'm just going to shorten it because John Stuart Mill loves to ramble here. It's robbing the human race more than those who hold the opinion. Because if the opinion is right, they're deprived of the opportunity of exchanging error for truth. And if it's wrong, and the opinion was wrong, so the opinion that the election was rigged, then what is just as great a benefit is that you have a clearer perception and livelier impression of the truth produced by its collision with error.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect reason why we need to have this court case.
Yeah.
Is you compare a potential truth with the current stated truth and see which one's stronger, which one's got more evidence on the side.
That's how the legal system should work in general.
You would think, but now we live in the court of the press and the court of...
Yeah.
Not even public opinion. The court of press opinion. And it is opinion.
Yeah. That's actually a quite neat way to put it. I think also we've probably been going for, I think, close to 2 hours now.
Hold on. Yeah, an hour and 45.
So I think this might be because otherwise we are going to keep rambling.
That is true. I'm happy to finish off here. I think we've discussed so many different topics. Comicsgate. We discussed the hero and the hero's journey.
If anyone has lasted this far listening to this, I say we aim to be a little bit more focused in future ones, but can't really promise that.
Yeah,
we'll start off with a starting idea or discussion, and then see where that takes it.
Yeah, I mean, the goal of this episode, as far as I'm concerned, is just to have you and I just discussing back and forth, just our own views and thoughts on things. But in future, we'll pick out a few things to discuss, maybe find some people to talk to who have some interesting views. And, honestly, I think if things go great, we can just explore all areas of politics, not just the sort of punditry, looking at the fact of things, but actually just exploring the idea behind things. And
definitely.
Given the contextual history that you bring in, I think that it'll get very interesting.
So now we've got to do the obligatory like and subscribe if you've listened this far. Shill ourselves like anything.
Honestly, my line is always just say I don't care if you like, subscribe, or whatever. This is my view, but please do share your opinion in the comments because
definitely that as well. And we will be reading all the comments. and probably trying to respond to as many as we can.
Yeah, and then we'll put a link to the guys talking about doing the Middle English and Old English translations.
Yeah. Things we've mentioned, we'll try and put links to what we remember from it anyway.
There was a second thing, but I don't remember what it was, so I'm going to have to watch the video now. The whole thing.
Put a link to Chesterton quotes and so forth.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll leave it there then, and hopefully have another podcast soon.
Excellent. Indeed. Thank you for watching, and if you have gone, or listening, if you have gone this far.
See you next time.